Yo, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the Midyear book freakout tag. Obviously, there's been some midyear freaking out because I have bangs again. They won't solve your problems, okay? They will not solve your problems. I know we're freaking out. Bangs are only gonna add to your list of problems. They know no peace. Anyway, this is the midyear book freakout tag. This is the 6th one we've done together. This is the 6th midyear book tag that we have done in a row. That means that you guys have been letting me yap about books for 6 years. Honestly, I don't know why you've let me keep going for this long, but I'm here. Thank you. And we're gonna talk about some books today. The lighting is gonna be really, really weird. There's tons of clouds. There's a big old sun. Also, never mind. Oh, feeling weird today. I have Les Questions on my phone and we are gonna get started. I love doing this tag so much. I love going back and watching old years. I love watching everyone's videos, and I never actually remember that this tag is coming up until everyone I'm subscribed to starts popping them out. And I'm like, it's my favorite time of year. It's actually not my favorite time of year. The first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2025? Okay, so I have 4 that I want to talk to you about. They're like loosely ranked, not really. The first best book that I've read in 2025 is The Shining by Stephen King. So happy that this is here. I'm so happy that this is here. Big thank you to you guys for making me read this. I just had like the best time of my life reading The Shining this winter. It was one of my favorite winter reads, and now that I'm like holding it and thinking back on it, this is actually like a really big comfort read to me, which is maybe weird because it's The Shining, but just like, I don't know, everything about the world and the hotel and the characters and the dynamics and the description. I love that this was like a 600-page book about this family losing it in a hotel. I just had the best time reading this. This was my first Stephen King that I've actually read. I did a whole vlog about this. I was not expecting to be faced with so many questions and family complexities and just like trauma and obviously everything that I love about the hotel. I'm so happy that I like this, and I'm now actually so much more interested in picking up more King because I'm like, what can I read next? I'm sure you know what this is about, so I won't talk to death about this, but just know that I was like so pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this, how like deep into the story I felt myself getting, how affecting it was, and I just ended up being really, really impressed by this. Obviously there were things that I didn't like, so I don't think this is a perfect 5-star read for me. Where do I go from here? What do I do? How do I proceed? The ones that I have in my mind, both my parents have been obsessed with 11, oh my god, I don't know. I know it starts with 119362. It's the date that Kennedy was assassinated. I don't think I got that title right, but you know which one I'm talking about. And then I'm also leaning a lot towards reading It, also Pet Sematary. So those are the 3. Those are the 3 that I'm like thinking about, but I'm not the expert on this one, so please let me know where to go. Let me know where to go. I'm so happy that this is here. Oh my goodness. This was like my hotel snowy world dreams, and I love this cover. Next book on this list is actually Under the Glacier by Halldor Laxness. This one is about a young man in Iceland being sent as an emissary from the Bishop of Iceland to go to this small rural community on the west peninsula of Iceland to find out what the heck is going on with Christianity there. Christianity is being like mangled and marred, and being like weird things are happening. Weird things are happening in this community. For example, the pastor has refused to like open the church, so like the church isn't actually open. There is this casket or something, apparently someone was buried out on the glacier. There are tales of like women coming back that have been long dead, and there's just like weird rumors abounding around this community. So this guy is being sent as emissary to not really like cast judgment or anything like that, but simply to create a report of what he finds and what's been going on, and give like his young, naive, impartial like impressions of this community where like maybe some kind of new religion is being created, or like where creation itself has not quite finished. This is also, I feel like, one of the most clever books I've ever read. I feel like this just made my respect for Halldor Laxness go through the sky, because his writing style in here and like how he constructs this narrative is just so genius in my opinion. Like he uses this report that the I am like having a heat stroke. My skin feels like it's burning. I wish I was in this book right now. I wish I was in this book right now so bad. This report that he writes is such an interesting artifact because it contains interviews, it contains stuff the emissary has written down verbatim from like questions that he's posed different people in the community. It contains his like own impressions, his own journals. He'll go off on tangents talking about like all of the birds that he's seeing, and like each chapter kind of becomes almost not a travelogue or anything like that, but there's so much going on. God, there's so much going on. And it's not a long book by any means. I was continually impressed by this. It blends like Icelandic mythology and folklore and the sagas and elements that are very present and like reused in all of the sagas in the novel. I just thought it was fantastic. I thought it was fantastic. There's obviously so much mystery. I was laughing my ass off. I found it incredibly charming. It just had everything that I love in it. I'm just like, yeah, I think I should go back and give this 5 stars because I've just been thinking about it so much. This was my first Halldor Laxness. I actually bought this in Iceland after I saw a quote from him about glaciers in the Perlin, which is like one of the, or it is the big museum in Reykjavik, the big natural sciences museum in Reykjavik. And then I went and I got this book and oh my gosh, love it. Book number 3 has to be Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. This has been sitting on my shelf collecting dust for a long time. This year I just felt like I was ready. James Joyce is one of those authors that I just feel like, or I felt like I had to read. And like I have read from him before, but I've only read a short story in Dubliners. I've only read The Dead, and that was for university. And so I kind of wanted to read Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man on my own. I didn't know how this was going to go. Obviously, all I've heard my whole entire life about Joyce is that he's just so difficult. And that like maybe that was sometimes the case, but honestly, reading Portrait was just like, I just felt so seen. This resonated with me so deeply. This is infused with so much of James Joyce's own life and his own experiences in Ireland, and it talks so much about the country in general. The country, and then obviously Stephen, who is the character in Portrait. This one is also so much about religion, but where Under the Glacier is very like light and frivolous a lot of the times with these topics, Portrait is so dark and deep and heavy and dare I say evil about these topics, because like you see the evil that religion brings about in Stephen's life, and it's so heartbreaking. This is honestly a book that I enjoy more now, the experience of having read, rather than one of those that I was like having the time of my life reading while I was actually reading it, because it's not really that kind of book. But a lot of times I find that the books that you're like, I'm so flipping glad that I read that, those are the ones that are kind of more important than the ones that you just like enjoy your time reading while you're reading it in the moment, if that makes any kind of sense. I gave this 5 stars. He's so big brain. Like I can't appreciate everything that he's doing in the book. I really can't. Yeah, I need to go back and read more. There's like things going on at every single level that is just so impressive to me. There is absolutely a number 1 favorite spot. Like this is the best book that I've read so far this year, hands down. And it's not a novel or anything like that, but it is an oresteia. Never actually heard someone pronounce this consistently throughout my whole entire life, so I haven't either. But this is 3 plays translated by Anne Carson. This is one of the best things I've ever read in my whole entire life. Anne Carson is not a new person to me. She's not a new person to me. She's very old. She feels like an old person to me in the fact that she just feels like she's in my soul. Like some kind of linguistic ancestor just like pulling things out and putting them on the page, and then I'm like, oh wow. This is Agamemnon, Electra, and Orestes by the 3 great Athenian tragedians. And oh my god, the story begins at the end of the Trojan War when Agamemnon is coming back home and his wife is waiting for him. And we follow this like cycle of events that's already been put in motion long before the Trojan War even started. Just like I highly recommend that. The next question is, what is the best sequel you've read so far in 2025? So I've read only 1, but I am very close to finishing another. So I guess I have to say Hunter x Hunter Volume 6. I hadn't read Hunter x Hunter in a really long time. I picked Volume 6 back up and like just fun. Volume 6 was the last volume that I had on my shelf, so I need to like go out there and get Volume 7. But yeah. This is a really fun manga. This made me really miss it. But my favorite sequel, which I'm this much of the way through, I'm currently about 400 pages through, is definitely Glow of the Everflame by Penn Cole. This is book 2 in the Curse of the Kindred series. This is a pretty new fantasy series, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I read book 1 earlier this year, and I just liked it so much, and I was like, I really want to read book 2 like right now, and that really hardly ever happens to me with any kind of series, actually. This is so good. I just really like this. I think this is so comforting. I feel like I'm really invested in the world. This is about Diem, who is a mortal girl in a world where immortals exist who are called the Descended, and they have magical powers. I just really enjoy the pacing of these. If you like slower fantasy works, this is a fantasy romance, but like there's hardly any romance in the first book. It's extremely slow burn. It's not the focus of the series, and I think that's what really makes a fantasy romance work for me. I don't like when it's like romance fantasy, if that makes sense. Like it really has to be fantasy first and then like skillfully integrate the romance. I really appreciate that we aren't rushing anything. I really like the writing. I really like the huge cast of characters. I'm just having a blast. Like I'm just having a blast with this. I really like the audiobook narrator as well, so I would highly recommend listening to at least maybe the first one on audio. This is definitely my favorite sequel by the time I finish it that I've read so far this year. The next question is, what is a new release you haven't yet read in 2025 but you want to? I didn't have an answer for this until I like started panic scrolling through new releases before I sat down, and I really only saw one that came out in the first half of this year. There was one on the list that I was like, oh, I would like to read that. However, none of these are really things that I'm like, I need to go read that right now. I saw that Nnedi Okorafor came out with a new book, I think in the first half of the year, and that is called The Death of the Author. It's about this woman who, I think she is an author, and it's like blending her experience. I think she gets fired from her job teaching, and so she starts to write a book that is just for her, and the book is a sci-fi about AI, and it blends like her experience but also blends the book that she's writing. It just sounds really cool. Very interested. I would probably read anything that Nnedi Okorafor writes. I've read 2 things from her so far that I've loved. I've read Remote Control and Binti. I really liked both of these. Remote Control is probably the one I like a little bit more. I've been really impressed with her. I love the topics that she covers in her books. I just think it's fantastic. Okay, the next question is, what has been your favorite accessory so far this year? Mine have definitely been these glasses from Pair Eyewear, because it means that I can have one pair of glasses but wear them in so many different ways. Pair Eyewear are very kindly sponsoring today's video. As you can see, it is so easy to change like the color or even the design, because I am obsessed with these sparkly glasses. Pair Eyewear makes it easy and affordable to order glasses online. They have so many different designs. Very simply, you choose your base frame. For mine, I decided to go with these like clear blue, very big, very large. They're just like very comforting to me. Also like very lightweight. And then you can also choose your top frames, which attach magnetically to your glasses and change the color. Even better, for the summer, they also have sun tops. So you can have your normal base prescription glasses with whatever prescription you need in, but then you can add a top frame that is a sunglass top. It means that you no longer have to have a pair of glasses for indoors and a pair of sunglasses for outdoors. You can actually just make them the same thing. As I said, I'm a big fan of the sparkle. This one is Midnight Sparkle. I also really like the black. It's just very simple. If you're not sure, they also have a virtual try-on tool on their website that helps you see what the glasses are going to look like on you before you order. Pair Eyewear also has a program called A Pair for a Pair. With this, a portion of every new customer's purchase goes to providing children with the power of vision, because Pair Eyewear is partnered with Alliance, and Alliance aims to close the gap in equitable access to eye care worldwide. You can also change the look of your glasses on the go, because you can very sneakily just like put whatever top frame you want in your glasses case, and then if you're not feeling your look, you can just change it. You guys can click the link in the description box to get 15% off of your first pair with the code EmmyReads15. Thank you so much to Pair for sponsoring this one. Love working with you guys. And let's see what the next question is. Is a new release that you want to read in the second half of the year. That's going to come out in the second half of the year. There are 2. The first one I wouldn't have known about if it wasn't for you guys. I've had so many people send me that this book was coming out. Thank you. Thank you so much, because book number 1 that I'm so excited about, I think it's out now if I'm not mistaken, is The Listeners by Maggie Stiefvater. First of all, big Maggie Stiefvater fan. Like, she shaped so much of what I read going through like the end of elementary and through high school. I loved so much from her. She's the reason I discovered Rilke, so like she is on my like list of debts that I need to pay off. I love her work so much, and I think this is her first adult book, if I'm not mistaken, is The Listeners. And what do you know? This is about a hotel. It's about a hotel during World War II. I think we follow the people who work at the hotel and them having to deal with the fact that like it's becoming kind of a, I don't know if it's like a luxury spot for Nazis, or like Nazis are just coming to live in the hotel, as it blends historical events with elements of magical realism. I'm so excited for this, man. I'm so flippin' excited for this. I need to get my hands on this. It's actually another book that I'm so sad about, because this is the last book in a series that I have been loving to death for the past like 5 years now. Basically ever since the pandemic, I have been obsessed with the series, really in love with this author, and I'm just so sad that the last book is coming out, I think in November, and that book is Violent Awakening by KJ Sutton. This is the sixth and last book in the Fortuna Sworn series. I'm so upset, guys. I'm so upset about it. I discovered this series thanks to BookTube during the pandemic, and it like quickly became my favorite fantasy romance series of all time. It has some of my favorite characters of all time. It is one of my biggest comfort reads. I usually honestly feel a lot of distance between myself and characters in novels, and there's a few books that really crack that distance, and Fortuna Sworn was one of those. Never ever get a chance to show these off, but I actually bought special editions of the series, and these to date are my only special edition books that I own. So I really like these, but I haven't talked about the series in a while. These are the special editions from, who actually made these? Bookish box. They're from the Bookish box. They're so gorgeous. Look at, oh my gosh. And then like the pages, wow. Beautiful. So yeah, this is the first book, Fortuna Sworn. There is every kind of supernatural creature that you can think of, like they exist. Fortuna is a nightmare, which I really like as well. I don't like shit about dreams and like dream worlds and dream sequences and like dream powers. KJ Sutton, it makes me enjoy everything that like I usually don't even enjoy. It's just such a joy to read these books. She is a nightmare. She can make you feel your worst fears. One day her brother Damon goes missing. He is also a nightmare, and she goes looking for him. Along the way, she like discovers this fae dude. Things escalate from there. I don't know how to even tell you everything that happens in these books. I've currently read the first 4 books. I am actually a book behind because I've only read up to Beautiful Nightmares, which is the 4th book in the series, and I do have the 5th book on my shelves. I just like wasn't ready because I've actually been like keeping up with this series to date as they come out, which I don't do. I can't stress how much I don't do that. But because every time a new book comes out, I go back and like read the entire series again. I just haven't had the time to do that. My plan is to like reread the series 1 book per month until November. That is the book that I'm just like the most excited about, also most sad about, the most worried about. This also contains like very dark, heavy themes. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea for sure, but I just love it. Now that I've gushed about that for way too long, we have the biggest disappointment for you so far this year in 2025. So to me, this doesn't mean worse because trust me, we have a lot of worst. We have a lot of worst books this year, which is sad. I have 2 books that I want to talk to you about. These ones I was disappointed because I had like quite high expectations. And yeah, you know what? Not even high. Mid. I think this has been incredibly hyped up everywhere, if I'm not mistaken, and I was really excited to give it a try and hopefully find a new favorite fantasy romance. I wish I understood the hype around this, but I really truly don't, and that is Heartless Hunter, or The Crimson Moth by Kristen Cicarelli. So badly done. I really thought this was so badly done. This follows Rune, who is a witch, in a world where witches are now pretty much just like murdered straight up. Like you're not allowed to be a witch anymore because the previous rulers of the world were witches and they did not run things very well, and so now everyone hates witches. We also have, I honestly forget his name because I thought he was so boring. I remember the other guy's name because this is a love triangle. I think his name was Alex. Honestly, I liked Alex. Alex was nice. Alex was kind. Alex wanted to go on vacation by the sea. We should have gone. But anyway, there's problems because he is a witch hunter and Rune is like trying to, I guess, marry herself. Like, I just don't, like, nothing was explained. I didn't understand this world. I didn't understand the rules of this world. I didn't understand the society. I, like, didn't get any clear mental picture. It's like there were no descriptions almost. There were literally almost 0 descriptions of what this place looked like. The romance, too, I felt was just so lackluster. Like, I literally felt 0 chemistry. I don't really cringe at books that much either, but I was cringing every time our 2 leads were on screen together. I didn't think the world was well done. I didn't think anything was well thought out. The other book that was the biggest disappointment for me is one that I read more recently, and that's actually The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. I think I'm going through the Kazuo problem. This is my 3rd book that I've read from this author now, and frankly, like The Buried Giant, I'll just tell you like the plot very quickly. This is set in like post-Arthurian Britain, where like the Saxons and the Britons have stopped fighting for a little bit and like there's an uneasy truce. We have this husband and wife duo, Beatrice and Axel, and they're struggling because first of all, they're elderly in a community that like I don't think is really treating them very nicely. Second of all, they're struggling because there's like this insomnia that is taking over apparently the whole entire land of like the island of the British Isles, and no one really knows what's going on. They're starting to forget everything. A lot of their long-term memories are being just like gone, evaporated in a mist, and they don't really know why. One day they decide that they're gonna set out to their son's village because they haven't seen their son or talked to their son in years, and they're like, why haven't we done that? Like, why haven't we talked to him? Why haven't we seen him? Why are we here? Where is he? Let's go out and like find our son and like see what's going on, and in the process maybe find out why everyone is going through oh my god, have I been saying insomnia? Amnesia. I'm so sorry. I meant to say amnesia. So everyone is losing their memories. I thought this was so boring. Like, I truly cannot stress to you how boring I thought this was. I don't consider myself a reader who gets bored easily. Like, I will more than willingly and very happily read theory and criticism and those boring English texts that they make you read at university. Frankly, I don't think they're boring. I think they're fascinating. I think they're fun. This, to me, God, this was like so incredibly dull, truly sleep inspiring. Opposite of insomnia, in fact. Like, I just thought this was an absolute snooze fest. Like, I could really try my best to argue that like maybe his writing style in here and a lot of the sleepy repeated scenes had to do and were like informed by the nature of the themes that we were exploring. However, that did not make for a great reading experience. It was just like so heavy. And I listened to a lot of this on audiobook, and it was still so difficult to get through. I did not feel anything towards this. I was just really disappointed because Ishiguro is like hailed as like the master of memory, and so many of his books are about memory. I love that theme. I love memory as something to explore, and deep down I am really appreciative of like what he's trying to talk about. I was even more interested in The Buried Giant because one of my favorite parts in my favorite book, 100 Years of Solitude, is the like plague of amnesia, or the plague of like forgetting, where everyone just seems to forget the names of things. Like, I love that section in 100 Years of Solitude, and it was so impactful in there, but for me, The Buried Giant just like really frankly wasn't. I don't know what to do now because this is my third book and I've read through half of my collection of Ishiguro. In the camp of books that I finished and don't like from this author very much, we have Never Let Me Go and The Buried Giant. I enjoyed Never Let Me Go considerably more than The Buried Giant, but the only book that I've read from him and have really enjoyed so far, or like I think I've enjoyed, but now my mind is like, did you enjoy it? Was When We Were Orphans. And this one again deals with memory very heavily, but in a way that was like really affecting to me. I don't know what to do with this author anymore. I have 3 more of his books on my shelf, and those are The Unconsoled, Clara and the Sun, and The Remains of the Day. Those are my biggest disappointments, and I don't know anymore if I'm an Ishiguro fan. I thought for sure he was going to be a new favorite author for me. Okay, next we have what has been the biggest surprise for you so far in 2025. For me, I have 2 books that I picked up thinking that I was going to like loosely enjoy them, and they ended up being like almost 5 stars each, and I just really had like the best time of my life with each of them, and they are My Lady Jane and The Maid and the Crocodile. My Lady Jane I picked up because I started watching the TV show, and I was like, I kind of want to give the book a try, especially because we have been betrayed and they have canceled season 2 of My Lady Jane, which I don't understand. I feel like this was one of the best book TV shows I've watched possibly ever. Just the overall feeling of it, I think they really nailed it, and it was hilarious. This is like an 80s rom-com set in Tudor England. It reminded me so much of those like Shakespearean films that they used to make. 10 Things I Hate About You, She's the Man, and isn't there like one more? This follows Jane, who becomes Queen of England for, I think, is it 9 days? The authors don't give a crap about history, and they just invent so many things, they do so many things. I think it's like so funny. If you like Monty Python, My Lady Jane, and they have a whole series, and I cannot wait to read more. I can absolutely not wait to read more. But it's also fantasy because there are people in this world who can turn into animals. And then The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Ufueko. This was a surprise because this was just a random one that like I found on Libby in my library, and I was like, okay, this sounds cool. This is another fantasy. Let's give it a try. This is set in the world of Jordan Ufueko's Raybearer series. I have not read Raybearer, and like you don't really need to. I would have preferred if maybe I had read The Raybearer. I don't know if it's a duology first, just to get like introduced to the world, because things are kind of dropped in The Maid and the Crocodile that like I think were lost on me. But anyway, this is like the kind of fantasy that I like because it's a very small focused story on like the people who actually live in these fantasy worlds and like what their day-to-day is like, and I just love that so much more. Like, you know, when you're watching Star Wars, you see these alien dudes in the back drinking, gambling, betting on the pod races, and you're like, what is your life like in the Star Wars world when you're not a Jedi, or when you're not blowing up literal planets. I'm like, what are we doing in this world? Like, what is our life like? What are we eating? Where are we working? Like, this gave me that kind of story that I really, really crave. So many themes in here that I adore. We're following this girl, and she is kicked out of her orphan house because she's now reached the age, I think she's turned 18, so she's no longer like allowed to be living at this orphan house, and she now has to go into the city and find work. This deals with so much about disability and just like labor in general, capitalism even in this like world, and I just, oh my god, like so impressive. I just really like the magic in this world. I love the gods in this world. The crocodile refers to the crocodile god who she finds herself like meeting and just like getting to know more and more. So good. So good. The next question is, what is your favorite new or new to you author? I really have to stretch my answer to this question because I don't really have one. Like, I thought the authors, there's 3 authors actually of My Lady Jane. I think they're hilarious and like very impressive that 3 people wrote one book, because you can't really tell. When I read more of her books, that's going to be the case, but the book I read from her this year was like so affecting to me that I don't know if I want to read more of her books, because it was actually so, it brought up so much in me that I wasn't really a fan of, and it was like very hard to read for a number of reasons. And that author is Magda Szabo, and that is The Door. This is the book that I read from her this year. This is my first from her. We read this for my book club, the World Tour book club, and this was the book that we read for Hungary. Actually, the protagonist and the narrator in The Door, her name is Magda, and she's also an author. So there's a lot going on in here, as you can imagine, but this is about Magda, who is a writer. She is married, and she lives in a pretty nice, I mean, honestly, it was a pretty nice apartment with her husband, and they need a cleaner. And so they hired this woman named Emerence, and she is an elderly woman. I think she's literally in her 90s or something, but she's like this mythological being. And this whole book is about Magda's relationship with Emerence, and she tells us like in the first few pages that she kills Emerence. She talked about so many topics that I'm interested in, and she ended up talking about them in like the most horrific way. I loved her attention to detail. I loved her talk about the past. I think I would have loved some more history lessons on Hungary before reading this book, honestly, but I still found so much to get out of it. I was really impressed by her talk about like architecture and buildings. This is obviously called The Door, and I was reading this at the same time as I was reading the Anne Carson translations, and there's so much about Greek mythology in here as well, and like the door and the passageway and like the symbolism of all of that and the terrifying consequences of crossing a boundary. I think it has to be Magda for this year, because I think she's just so incredibly talented, and I'm really glad that like the World Tour introduced me to her. I think a lot of people found this incredibly affecting in the book club. Okay, the next question is, who is your new fictional crush in 2025? The language in Anne Carson's translation. Like, I truly have like a physical attraction to the language. I just have such like a longing for it and like a desire for it, and I really love words. I just really love words, and I really love language, and it just has this like certain words and certain phrases and sentences and like the combination that you use with those things. I'm just so like, oh my god, fangirling that was occurring when I was reading Anne Carson. In terms of like a person, honestly, oh my god, I had the biggest crush on the narrator in Under the Glacier, because we never learn his name. He's so fresh. I don't know what the word is. His mind was so interesting. I really just like him because he's so open. Like, that's the whole reason that he's there at Under the Glacier. He's there to like record his experiences. He's so funny, he's so frank, he's so earnest, he's also so charming, and like there's a deep intelligence in what he chooses to write about and what he chooses to talk about. I fell in love with this narrator. I was like giggling, kicking my feet. Okay, this is not a new fictional crush, but I reread a book this year, and I just ended up loving this character so much more, because I think when you reread or even rewatch the film, you get to see so much more of like what his true intentions and thoughts and feelings are, and I'm just like, oh my. I reread Howl's Moving Castle a couple months ago. Howl. Okay, the next question is very similar, is what is your new favorite character? This one I really struggle with, but I have like 3 loosely. So I've talked about Stephen from Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I really love Stephen, really feel for Stephen. Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle. I love Sophie so much. Rereading the book was just a joy, and like I really truly love Sophie. I have rewatched the film Howl's Moving Castle an embarrassing amount of times this year. Like, at this point I will just put it on in the background because it is just like ultimate comfort to me. It's ultimate just like love, comfort, inspiration. Finally, this one is like new-ish, and I'm not even done the book, but I really, really like Lee from East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I've become really attached to Lee. I really like him. He is the like servant and cook and caretaker of one of the families in East of Eden, and he also has dreams of opening like a bookshop. Next question is, what is a book that has made you cry this year? So I've actually only had 2 books that have made me cry. The first one, this was on my best books of 2024, but I technically finished this in January of 2025, and that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I did shed a couple tears reading Little Women. This was very heartwarming, very touching and special and full of love and big-hearted, and I cried at the exact scenes that you are imagining that I cried at. And then the other book that I actually like broke down about this one. I had to like turn the camera off, and I had a big old cry. I really had a big old cry. Was not expecting this like at all whatsoever. I got to the last few pages of The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, and I like lost it. This was so affecting. The last few pages, the way that this book ends, it like, I've never seen a book stick the landing so incredibly hard and be so incredibly affecting and profound and have such dramatic consequences on the reader. It made the whole book worth it. It was the perfect ending in my opinion, and I just really had a great big cry, and I can't tell you why, otherwise I'll spoil everything. In the name of more emotions, what is a book that has made you really happy so far this year? I have one big old answer for you, and that's Howl's Moving Castle. It's Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This was a reread. I think this was the first time that I had read it for myself, because I first listened to this on audio. So stupidly happy. I love this book. I think it's so wonderful. I also think it's like kind of complicated. I don't know, but on my reread, I was like, damn, like this is a middle grade. In Howl's Moving Castle, there are so many characters in disguise. There are so many people who are actually other people. There's a large cast of characters, and I actually think it gets incredibly confusing. This book is so comforting to me. This is about Sophie, who works at a hat shop, and she is the eldest, which means that she has like the worst luck and is cursed. She gets turned into an elderly woman, and she goes to find the wizard Howl in hopes that maybe he can like lift her curse. So she just kind of wants to get out of society, and she becomes his cleaning lady, and it's like just perfect. It's just perfect. I can't tell you how happy this makes me. Obviously love Calcifer, the fire demon. 2 questions left. The first one is, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year? The first one is this gorgeous old book. This is Amid Snowy Wastes by, who's this by? Sutton Gordon. And I bought this in Scotland at a second-hand bookshop in Fort William, of like vlog going to the bookstore. It was wonderful. It's called the Highland Bookshop, and they had a whole section on like polar. So this is like his account visiting Svalbard. This one is in much better condition, but I bought a different copy of Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man this year. I saw this at a secondhand bookshop on Vancouver Island, and I had to get it. Is this the Folio Society? And then finally, the last question is, what is your TBR for the rest of the year, or what books do you need to read before the year ends? A lot of people have been asking when I'm going to finish this series, and I have it planned to read the series, reread the first one, and then read hopefully all of them this fall. To me, this series screams fall time and spookiness and Pacific Northwest. I thought it would be the perfect time to read The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Here she is again. So I read the Raven Boys for the first time, I think last year. Was it last year or the year before? Might have been late the year before, and it made it onto my best books of the year. I flipping loved this. Like, I thought this was fantastic. I really think she's so talented, and I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. This is following Blue, whose like entire family has clairvoyant powers of some sort, and it also follows her encounter with a group of like some of them are quite like rich and stuck up boys at a boarding school. They're called the Raven Boys, and they are trying to find something to do with Welsh mythology. The atmosphere was incredible, and I had the best time, and so I just really want to get into the rest of the series, and I want to do a reread. A couple book club picks that I of course have to read. So first up, this one I'm starting like today or tomorrow. This is Beware of Pity by Zweig. This one we are reading for the World Tour Book Club for Austria. I'm very excited because so far from this author, I've only read Chess. I loved it, and I think he's gonna be an all-time favorite author for me. Really looking forward to finally reading my first R.F. Kuang this year. This is an author that I don't know why I haven't read from before, despite having things like The Poppy War sitting unread on my shelf, but regardless, for the Game of Tomes book club, for the last 3 months of 2025, we're going to be reading Babel. And I'm so incredibly excited. Like, it's going to be the perfect time to start a book about like academia and the dark side of academia. And I believe there's a lot of fantasy woven into here as well. It's set in 1828. Something that I would just really like to get to is Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis. This looks fun. This is about a hotel floating around in space. This looks like very wholesome. Thank you for hanging out with me this afternoon. Wishing you all the good things, all the good books coming your way, hopefully, if you haven't read any good ones yet so far this year. But until my next video, I hope you keep very well. Ciao.